Thank you so much for turning into Beyond Should. I'm happy to have you here. I'm Lucy Reynolds, your host and the founder of the Murmuration Collective, where we empower women for lasting transformation in all facets of their life, both professionally and personally. And we get it. This is a dynamic and challenging time we're living through. And if you're feeling frustrated or out of control with your current work situation or life in general, and feel like something is just waiting for you just beyond your reach or clarity, then perhaps you might want to consider taking on a coaching engagement with us at the Murmuration Collective. We support women on the daily to wade through their confusion and find what they seek in the next chapters of their personal and professional lives. Our contact details are in the show notes. We look forward to meeting you and hearing what's going on for you. Now let's tune in together to this next episode of Beyond Should.
It can be really difficult to go from having a great role in a great agency or great brand, seeing your name in lights, or in my case, headlines and style sections, to then having to take a gig for 50% of your rate. Because guess what? The economy is
Got to pay
crappy.
the bills.
And you got to pay the bills. You got to keep the lights on. So going
Yeah.
from your name in lights to keeping the lights on. And the lesson there is about sort of balancing what you want to do with what you got to do.
Hi, I'm Lucy Reynolds, and welcome to Beyond Should, a podcast for women reinventing their lives, their careers, and owning their power. This is a show where you'll gain insights on how to stop doing what you should do and finally start naming, claiming, and pursuing what you deeply want. On this week's episode of Beyond Should, I sat down with Shena Patel to talk about what happens when you stop following the career path that society or your family or culture has told you to take and instead start building a life and career based on curiosity, creativity, and your own inner voice. From walking away from law school to working across publishing, fashion, luxury brands, and creative leadership roles, Shena shares how letting go of expectations and finally listening to herself opened the door to a completely different way of thinking about success. Shena Patel, it is so nice to welcome you here. This is going to be such a rich conversation, and I am so honored that you said yes to our invitation to be on Beyond Should.
Well, I'm so honored that you asked me. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So Shen and I are both part of the board, and it is a really important part. You listeners are starting to get a sense that I really do love the women that are part of the board. It is a fractional collective wisdom platform that April Uchitel founded. And we found ourselves there, didn't we, together? We met
Yeah.
at the New York meetup about a year and a half ago. And then you came to one of our salons. And then I fell even more madly in love with you when I read an article that you posted on their Substack. So thank you.
Thank you for reading it.
Funny how people are put in your pathways. And if you are open to the universe giving you what you need, I had met you at the meetup. You came to my salon, but I have this amazing life right now where I'm meeting so many wonderful people. And then I read your article. It was almost like the universe was like, knock once, knock twice, knock three times. And I wrote to you and you were like, Lucy, we know each other. And I was like, oh my God, you're that woman. And so it was really sort of a lovely universe, like finally like, hey, you need to get to this one. And so I got to you. So yeah.
I think that the universe tells you who you need to know, who you're really going to connect with. And I think that's been really a through line in my life and in my
Yeah.
career. And that's something April has really built with the board.
Absolutely. So if you all haven't checked it out, check out the board. All right. So Shena, we're talking a lot today about your career, which has been, well, people would say nonlinear, that you've gone a different way. But actually, I think that you are one of the four women of this upcoming generation of people who are in careers that are going to have many multiple paths. And I would love to just first start and talk a little bit about your upbringing, because you started to shed shoulds very early in your life. So you wrote in this amazing article, Younger Self, around feeling like you didn't quite fit the mold. What was that experience like for you as a young girl?
I think I felt like I didn't fit a lot of molds, you know.
Mm.
I grew up in a small town in Northern New York. My parents were immigrants from India. They were both doctors, and it was, the 70s and 80s. I think there were a lot of expectations of
Mhm.
what children of Indian immigrants who were both doctors should do,
And your
should
father made that
be.
quite clear,
Oh,
didn't he?
yes. Oh, yeah. Yes, he did. There's a joke with ABCDs, as they're called, American-born confused desis, which are kids like me. Like, they say, "You have 3 choices. You're either a doctor, an engineer, or a failure." And
Yep.
and my parents weren't quite that rigid, nor would I say they were super conservative, but it was very, very clear to me that my path was supposed to be that, becoming a
Mm.
doctor, and not just a doctor, but a neurosurgeon like my father, and I was supposed to study, and I was supposed to excel academically, and I was definitely okay with the excelling academically piece of
Yes.
it,
Yes.
but I was never quite sure about the doctor piece of it.
When did you first realize that path wasn't right for you?
I realized probably very early, probably elementary school or middle school, I was much more drawn to reading and writing and more creative pursuits, I would
Mhm.
call them, more expressive pursuits. But I didn't realize what other jobs looked like, right? I mean, you grow up in a house in a small town and your parents are doctors and the extended family, there were a lot of doctors and engineers, and I didn't know what other jobs looked like. I also
Mhm.
wasn't in a town like New York where I had friends who had, oh, there were professors in our community, but I really didn't know what anything else could look like.
How did you start to express yourself and bring them along, or did that not happen until you were older?
So the first time it really happened, I was in high school and I dropped physics to take advanced writing,
Uh-oh.
and I had to get permission from my
Yes.
parents. Now, it was all a negotiation, you see. I was a negotiator from an early age, which is probably where my dad got the plan B idea that I would go to law school.
We'll get to law
But
school
I'll
in a
get to
minute.
that later. But preview of coming attractions, you see. I had already been accepted to university. I think I supposed to be a bio major, so
Okay.
pre-med track. I wanted to take a second semester of advanced writing. And I said, I do not want to take physics anymore. I do not need it. I've been accepted, and I
Mm.
dropped.
So you negotiated, "Look, I'm already on the path here, so let me, throw me a bone here. Let me have a little bit of advanced writing." Okay, and they said yes.
And they said yes, and I remember I got a perfect score on an essay I wrote about my mother in advanced writing. It
Mm.
was a descriptive essay about her, and I actually recently found that essay, when I was, cleaning up my childhood home.
Mm. How was that reading that?
It was amazing to read it. I
Yeah,
was like, "Oh, you were a good writer in high school."
of
Another letter
course.
to my younger self, but I loved it, and I realized I think I knew in high school that I wanted to write, and I
Mhm.
loved reading. And I loved Shakespeare. I took a lot of Shakespeare,
Mm.
classes.
Mm.
I know a lot of people don't love Shakespeare. I did. I've taken tons of Shakespeare classes. So I think even, my mother bought me classic novels and literature when I was in 6th grade.
So you might have had an ally there on the side.
I definitely had an ally. She says my father blamed her. for my
Well, and isn't that
transgressions.
really interesting? Because here, if we look back as women now and we can see, like, I attribute a lot of how I am in the world with my mother and her sister and her cousin. They were all given nursing degrees. The boys went off to very prestigious universities in England, and the girls were given nursing degrees. And
Mhm.
as soon as all three of them completed their nursing degrees. They took their degrees and left the UK. My mom came to the States, her sister went to Australia, and her cousin went to Kenya. And there then set the trajectory of these women explorers in my family. And my mom worked her way across the United States, actually got engaged to somebody, a rancher in Wyoming, and pulled up the plane from that crazy and then met my dad in California. My aunt was working her way across Australia, met my uncle, and my cousin met her husband in Kenya. And so these women set me on a very different path. So here's your mom on the side, handing you Shakespeare, handing you really deep literature, almost inviting you in like, I dare you. I just dare you.
And that's absolutely true. I mean, she and my dad met in India when they were, 18 in
Hmm.
college. They went through med school together, but
Hmm.
then their paths diverged. And my dad went to Edinburgh to study neurosurgery. My mom actually came to the United States and
Mm.
she was at Boston Children's doing pediatrics. And then they met again in the UK and they got married in London, where I was born. But my mom was extremely independent, and I think probably saw that in me as I
Mm.
was growing up. My dad was a force, but so was my mom.
But she did it in a different way.
She did.
I don't know your mom at all, but what I'm knowing a little bit about you was already shaking some shoulds by being so as independent as she was, and then instilled that in you. Let's bring your mom back into this conversation
Yeah.
anytime because I'm all for it. But let's move on to you. You went to McGill as pre med, as you talked about, but knowing kind of maybe in your core that you would switch to English lit. Was that the time that you first were like, okay, I'm going to have to let go of this should medical thing? How did this come about?
Oh, pretty simply, I had 0 interest in attending uh, any of
Well,
my
that would probably
pre-med
indicate to your
classes.
professors.
Y Yeah, I just didn't go, and I had no interest in going, and I don't say this to sort of toot my own horn, but in high school, I didn't have to do much to get through my science and math requirements. At a university like McGill, you have to go,
Yeah.
and so that didn't really work for me. So I was like, yeah, calculus, bio, not going, not
Nah,
doing it,
no, thank
not
you.
not not participating.
So did you what? Fail the class? Like what happened?
Oh, yes, I did. I
Oh, you
did.
freaking failed.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and so that was not an acceptable or good look. I 2nd semester, I was like, "This is not happening." I think
Mm.
probably even earlier, and my dad's birthday was February 4th, and it was his 50th birthday, and I brought a bunch of friends to his surprise party and decided that would be the night I would declare to all that I had happily chosen a major.
And how did
Oh,
that land?
it was probably the worst received birthday present I ever gave him.
Well, you guys, in this letter that she writes to her
Mhm.
younger self, she has this beautiful you are a beautiful writer. And
Thank
we'll
you.
see if we can't make this accessible for everybody to read the letter to your younger self. But you guys, she says she gives herself advice and she's like, maybe you shouldn't have done it on dad's birthday. Or maybe
Yeah.
you should.
I
Or one,
mean,
two. If
pick
we
a
should do
different
it.
pick your moments. That's a lesson.
Okay.
It's not a should, it's more, like
Understand your impact.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
That comes with a little bit of maturity just because,
You can't maybe you might not want to.
that
Like,
might
that's
have
how
been a
we
little bit of Dutch courage too, I gotta
yeah.
tell you.
Okay, so let's
Yeah.
take that moment. Like, looking back now, what did standing your ground at that moment teach you about trusting your instincts? I mean, actually, we can call a little bullshit on you
Yeah.
right now. I think you knew
Sure.
exactly what you were doing.
I knew that it was the right decision for me. I knew I wasn't gonna change my mind, and I'd called in the troops. I had reinforcements,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I was like, "Why wait? Rip the Band-Aid off. This is not changing."
Right.
Um, and I probably thought that he was gonna be in a good mood because it was a birthday party, right? So, not so.
Not so. Not
Not
so.
so.
But so then
And
now we have this awakening. It's all out, Band-Aid's ripped. You're going to be an English lit.
right.
You graduate from McGill very prestigiously, and then you go where? You go to New York,
I
right?
went to New York and I had a great support system in New York.
Mhm.
My mom supported me and my aunt and uncle. So my mom's sister and her husband lived here,
Mhm.
and my mom's brother, who is still here. He's turning 100 in November,
Oh,
knock on
wow.
everything.
Wow.
And my aunt, his wife, they lived here, and they were super supportive of me.
Mm,
And I know that they were advocating for me behind the scenes now.
mm.
But I was like, "What does a good English lit major do?" She works in book publishing.
Oh.
So I did the NYU summer publishing course. And this is something actually that I did throughout the course of my life and career. I navigated my choices with an element of practicality. How do I achieve this goal?
Mm,
And, because my parents came from a different country and a different background and a different career path, I
mhm.
didn't have the guidance and, we didn't have the internet either.
So practicality and instinct? Like, what is this?
I think there was a bit of instinct. I asked a lot of questions, something that I
Mm.
still do. And
Mhm.
I said, listen, I love books. I should, look into book publishing. And I had a really good friend who is still one of my best friends, and his mother worked in New York City in book publishing. And so I learned about the NYU book and magazine publishing summer course,
Okay.
summer institute from him, and I
Mhm.
applied. And I was accepted and I said I'm going to do this thing, and I lived in the East Village and there's a job fair at the end.
Mm.
So I said this is how I'm going to get a job in New York and live in New York, because really I had always wanted to live in New York.
Mhm.
And really, I wanted to get a job.
Any
So,
job.
I mean, not any job, but I think probably at the time, I believed that a job in book publishing was more, and I use air quotes, "intellectual" than a job in magazines.
Okay.
What I later learned is that I was more suited to magazines. A teacher in that summer course who was like, "You should actually consider magazines because you're a writer, and that's not
Mm.
gonna be part of your remit if you work in books." I
Mhm.
actually didn't listen.
Mm. Well, I mean, honestly, I'm going to say it this way. She said you should, so that's
Mhm.
somebody else's value. You hadn't
Sure.
bought into it yet.
I
And
hadn't.
this is where I really do, when somebody tells you a should, this is, what I hear is that you
Mhm.
actually ran it through your own consideration set and you made a choice. You decided not to. And what was that about?
I think that was about me being an arrogant 22-year-old and, thinking
But sometimes that's
I
okay.
knew better.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't regret the choices and decisions I have made have
Mhm.
led me on the path to where I am now, and I think it's been a pretty interesting one.
Mhm.
I don't believe I have regrets. I can't think that way. I wouldn't make a grandiose statement like I don't believe in regrets, but I would say that I don't believe I have regrets.
Mhm.
I think that um in retrospect this person wasn't shoulding me.
But I gotta fill in the
Yeah.
gap here. Is this
Yeah.
before or after you also decided that law school was the way to
Oh,
go?
way before.
Okay, all right,
way
so we're not
before.
even there yet. Okay,
We're
so
not even there
went into
yet.
publishing, decided that wasn't, found the route of magazines.
Yep. And then it was hard. It was hard to pivot from books to magazines. That took a good 4 years, to get someone to hire me in magazines. And when it finally happened, sadly, the slow death rattle of that industry was happening. That was heartbreaking because I loved it.
So there's the death of the magazine industry, and you had to pivot again. You had to make, another choice around where you were going.
Yes.
You had to keep evolving your professional brand. So where were you pointing your compass now?
So I said and 9/11 happened.
Mm, mm,
And it was really, really hard to get any sort of job in 2001 in New York. I was born in the UK and I have dual citizenship and I love it there. And so I said, well, now could be a good time to do my master's. And I wanted to do, to do it there. And so I said, well, why don't I do a master's in media and communications in London? And my dad said, okay. That sounds like a good plan, but, I also think you'd make a really good lawyer, and this had been sort of a recurring narrative, right?
he was grasping at straws, y'all. Doctor, no. Engineer, no. What's the next
Well,
prestigious
engineer,
thing?
he never even tried. When I dropped physics, I think he realized that was never gonna happen. So I spent 2001 taking all of the standardized tests. I took the
Oh, the
GMAT, the
GMAT, the LMAT, you took it
GRE, the
all.
LSAT, I took it all.
Oh,
And
Shannon, no one does that, by the way. Okay. So you
I
gave
was
yourself
like, I
options,
got
and
some
also you were
time, I got some
appeasing the judge and
options.
jury. So,
Yes,
okay.
I was
Mhm.
like, "Whatever, sure, I'll take those tests." But then I was accepted at Goldsmiths, which is part of University of London in the media and communications master's program, so and he said, "Okay, but when you get back, you need to apply to law school. I think that would be a great move for you."
That sounds like a
And
big, big motherfucking should.
oh, oh, more than a should, it was a will. You
Uh-huh.
will, right?
Mhm.
And it's so interesting. I mean, I've come to realize that more than anything, what my father wanted for me
Yeah.
was financial security
Yeah.
and independence
Isn't that
professionally. He
wonderful?
and
For his girl. For his
I
girl.
absolutely, there was no sort of stereotypical Indian male
Yeah.
misogyny. He was
Yeah,
like,
let's
"My
be clear, you guys.
daughter."
He
Yeah.
loved his
Oh,
daughter.
yeah.
And I was reading about he's been gone now for about 10 years, but he's still very much in your
Oh,
in your
yes.
everyday conversations. And he loved you very much,
Yes.
although he was strong-willed.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
so you went to grad school, then you finished, and then you came back and you did get accepted into law school, didn't you?
I did. I was accepted at law school, and in the meantime, I had answered a job posting on Media Bistro. I applied to this position at Tiffany as it was called copywriter interactive media. And this is when luxury brands did not believe they should be on the interwebs. I went to Tiffany in December of 2003, and I was like, "This is what I'm meant to do."
This was the biggest job opening or
Yeah,
moment or
yeah.
opportunity that set you on the pathway you were meant to be doing.
Yep, I loved it. I brand voice, writing clever headlines, understanding visual identity, that
Mhm,
the integrity of a brand, the stories we would tell. I mean,
mhm,
all of the stuff that you're now reading, we were talking about way before I even got to
mhm.
Tiffany. And I was learning about absorbing like a sponge because it all just made sense to me.
So I just want to pause really quickly on that word absorbing like a sponge because there's been a reoccurring theme that has happened with all the guests that we've had on. And it's, I guess, a pearl of wisdom around if you're in your like 30s, and your late 20s and early 30s, and you're in your career and you're listening to this, and it's around getting into opportunities where you can watch, where you can absorb. You get to, yes, be a contributor, but you actually, your best move is to not feel like you should always be the smartest person in the room, but instead give yourself permission to watch and actively listen, ask questions, get curious, make relationships because those people are going to hire you in your future. So, yeah, tell me about that.
Oh gosh, I was fascinated every single day. And I was given the opportunity by the people I worked with. And it was a moment in time, I think, also. I think, it's difficult having 30 years of experience to say that this is always going to be the case when you go into a workplace, right? There's alchemy that has to happen. You have to,
Mm,
so much of it is about the people you're working with, right?
yes.
And I remember we had this amazing CMO who would sit she was just this incredibly elegant person who would
Mhm,
sit at the table, and I remember I was a copywriter. I was a baby copywriter, and
mm,
she said, "Shenna, if you wrote it, you should present it."
mm,
And there was no hierarchical BS that happened.
mhm,
I wrote it, I would present it, I would read it. And she said, "You have a beautiful voice. You have a beautiful way of reading." And that's how I learned to present. That
mm,
prepared me for the rest of my career, for my career as a creative executive, presenting to really senior people, to clients, to,
mm.
in pitches, because I was, starting out my career at Tiffany, and she said, "Do this."
So, what I hear in that is surround yourself, and Sarah Albury actually talked about this a little bit in her episode. Surround yourself with people that will help you and hold the space for you to stretch.
To stretch, to be uncomfortable, to put yourself in situations you've never been in before. Ask questions, listen, learn. But when someone gives you an opportunity to do something you've never done before, take it. Raise your hand, you know? I think that when you're at that juncture in your career, I see so many people mistake questioning for asking questions. That's not what we're necessarily here to do, or to offer opinions when really you should be waiting to hear people at the table who have more experience give their opinions first.
Yeah, and you can question, but mind your impact. Be responsible for your impact. Is it a question that is backhanded? Is it a question that shows your curiosity? Is it a question that might identify that you notice an opportunity or identifying a problem, but you have to invite? I mean, I think this is when I work with young leaders a lot. How do you invite others into what you're seeing and what you'd like to contribute? And it's a leadership acumen you have to hone. And it's an important one to learn early on is to manage your impact so that others can be invited in if you are going to step into the space. And then as you get grow in your leadership acumen, that's really where what separates true leaders is inviting others to follow. So that then they actually go and execute, right?
I really did not hear people say in that job, in leadership, true leadership positions, "I like," or "I don't like." There wasn't that sort of feedback being given. It was
Hmm.
always about the brand. So, I was about 4 months in, 5 months in. I was pretty solidly in it, and I was accepted at law school.
Uh-oh. And you were loving it.
And I was loving it, and I felt it. You feel it when you're
Mm,
doing something you should be doing, and
mm.
that's a good should. um,
That you want. We're
that you
really
want.
trying to
Yeah,
work on shoulds and want to. So you
yeah,
and I let's talk about that. The body like vibration. We talk about it a lot, a lot, a lot.
yeah.
So you knew, you felt it.
I felt it.
This was what you wanted to do. And what
And
happened when you got that letter of
oh,
invitation to law school? What happened in your body?
oh, my stomach sank,
Yeah.
right? I was like, "Oh god."
Right, and that's
Um,
really important. I really do
yeah,
think that, that body wisdom, if you all are feeling a pit in your stomach, that's a misalignment with values. That's misalignment with dreams and creative, thinking of what you wanna create in your life. So talk to me about that.
yeah. There was a sinking feeling. I mean, I feel it in my
Sinking.
stomach. Other people feel it, different ways.
Oh, yeah.
For me, it's a sinking feeling in my stomach. And the opposite of that is a feeling I get like when I wrote the letter to my younger self. It's
Mhm.
what some people call flow state.
We call flow state when you're aligned with your strengths,
Mhm.
your preferred skills, because as women, we can be skill built up. I mean, we can do
Oh yeah.
anything you ask us to do, but which ones do we
Mhm.
prefer to
Right.
use? And then align it with our passion.
Passion.
That is flow.
Mhm.
And people are like, "Oh, it comes so naturally to me." I'm like, "That's because you're doing what you should be doing, not should want to be doing. That's what your
Right.
body was made to be doing."
Right.
So I love that differential between the pit sinking
Mhm.
and flow.
Right.
And you know it, you feel it.
You feel it, and there's work that I do, there was work I still remember the projects that I've done at different brands that I remember how it felt to write that piece or that headline
Mm.
and knowing I nailed it.
Mm.
I remember them.
Well, I want to actually use
So
this body wisdom and the
mhm,
alignment of what is needed in each phase of our lives to make values-based decisions.
mhm.
Because your work has moved you between corporate roles and creative leadership to
Yes.
consulting and fractional work now, we call it. How
Mhm.
did you learn to embrace a portfolio career instead of the traditional ladder? Like how did you or let's actually
Right.
go back and say how did you use your body wisdom and your work that you did to align
Mhm.
like what does Shenna need now in her at 35 or at
Mhm.
40 or at 45?
Well, my decisions have actually again, I think there's a mix of the practical
Mm,
and then very much the ephemeral when it comes to each of the sort of career decisions and transitions I've made. And sometimes, Lucy, the decisions have been made for me. I
mm,
mean, this is
mhm,
New York City.
mhm.
We've gone through 30 years. There have been layoffs.
Yeah.
There have been economic downturns.
Mm,
Without naming names, I have been in organizations that have been very toxic.
mhm,
And that body wisdom, developing TMJ,
mm.
gaining 15 pounds in 4 months,
Yep.
not sleeping,
The
that
body whispers till it fucking screams.
I
Mhm,
mean, I
mhm.
don't, like drinking too many martinis,
Yep. Yep.
you
Yep.
know. There have been a lot of signs that have shown themselves very plainly that I've been in situations that I'm not supposed to be in. And I think that I have listened to them.
Mm.
So what I've taught myself to do is to be very agile. It hasn't been easy, and I haven't always had a great attitude about it, I'll tell you that.
It can hurt.
It can be really difficult to go from having a great role in a great agency or great brand, seeing your name in lights, or in my case, headlines and style
Mhm,
sections, to then having to take a gig for 50% of your rate.
mhm.
Because guess what? The economy is
Gotta pay
crappy
the bills.
and you
Mhm,
gotta pay the bills. You gotta
mhm.
keep the lights on. So going
Yeah.
from your name in lights to keeping the lights on. And, the lesson there is about sort of balancing what you want to do with what you gotta do. And that's not a
Mm.
should, that's a
Yeah.
practicality. And, again, I used to do this thing, and I wasn't always good about this myself, as a teenager and in my 20s, but when I got to my 30s, I used to call my parents on my walk home from work,
Mhm.
and whether I talked to them for 2 blocks or 20 blocks, I'd give them a call and just chat. And I remember, during one of those, lean periods, shall we call them,
Mhm.
I took a gig at an agency, and it was for 50% of my rate.
Mhm.
And at the same time, my brother and sister-in-law, both attorneys,
Bless them.
probably the right choice for them,
I'm just kidding.
they had just gotten a luxury car.
Mm.
And so my parents shared this news with me. And very sour grapes. I was like, "Well, it's nice to hear that life is going well for somebody." And my dad was like, "Never feel sorry for yourself and begrudge someone else's success." And that really stuck with me. I was like, "You're right." And sure enough, the next day, one of my great friends and bosses, he called me up with a great gig that paid me my rate.
Mhm.
You know,
Because he knew you. He knew you
'cause
the
that was a
value of you.
relationship,
This is
yes.
very important, I think, especially right now, and especially in these downturn times, to really lean into our circles, really lean into, as I refer to them with my clients, is who's on your advisory board? Because you
That
could have called him and, maybe you did and been like, "Hey, I'm open to whatever." And yeah, tell me about him.
he was one of the best. He was, an ECD when I was an ACD, so he was
Yep.
a couple levels above me, and we met when I was at G2, and, actually, we ended up he wasn't my direct boss when I was there, but we met when the agency worked on pitches,
Mhm.
and, I adored him, and we actually ended up socializing together quite a bit, and that's another piece of advice that I have for people coming up in their career. Don't be afraid to talk to somebody because they're senior. Don't be
Mhm.
afraid to go to the office. This is where you make relationships and you learn stuff in those corridor conversations.
I think that's also what's happening right now is everybody's being laid off, let go in a remote environment. And so there's no one you're not I mean, I have clients and they all work for the same agency and they're spread all over the United States. They see each other twice a year, and it's these in-person moments that deepen our connection with one another, that allow you to be more vulnerable. I mean, really good leaders are working hard to do this virtually, but it is a, "Hey, can we go out for a coffee?" Or
That
catching any chance you wanna go grab a sandwich, across the street.
Absolutely. Let's go for a little walk around the block. I
Clear
mean,
the air. Yeah.
we got to know each other. We never actually worked together on the same team day to day. If we
Mhm,
hadn't been in the office together, if we hadn't worked on pitches together, we never would have really known each other. And we got along. We talked about music,
mhm, mhm,
and then when he knew I was freelancing
mhm.
and he happened to have a gig open up on his team at a different agency. He had left, I had left, and he called me and he's like, "How you doing?"
Well, you know what
You
this is
know?
bringing up for me? You and I chatted, and those of you who followed along with the Murmuration Collective know that when we coach with our clients, the word expectation leaves us
Yes.
all lying flat. And you guys, when I was talking to Shenna, she brought up, I hate expectations. And we both like totally aligned around the word expectancy. What does expectancy mean for you, Shenna?
Expectancy for me, and I've been thinking about this a lot because I think for me it's a little bit about faith.
Faith in what?
Faith in believing that the work you've done is going to lead to things sort of working, maybe not in the way that you quote unquote expect them to. I go to a lot of networking events,
Mhm.
And I don't go with the idea that I'm gonna land 3 clients. I go with the idea that I'm gonna meet some interesting people and have some interesting conversations.
That might go anywhere. That could go sky's the limit.
I remember I was a member of one of the original women's leadership organizations,
Mhm.
and it was during lockdown, and they used to have these speed networking Zoom things, and I used to
Mhm.
go to all of them. And I met this woman, and she was like, "Oh, I might have somebody for you, right? Might have
Mhm.
someone you should meet." So I sent an email. I sent another email. I sent another email.
Mhm.
And no expectation. Literally 6 months later, it led to one of the most lucrative ongoing fractional retainer relationships I had, plus a client who I still have a relationship with who has given me so much great advice about my business.
Mm.
And this woman is a friend of mine now,
Mhm.
a good friend.
So when you have great expectancy, and this I think as more and more, I think we know that by like 2030, like half or more of the workforce is going to be in portfolio careers, is to have a mindset around great expectancy and curiosity, and to have an explorer's mindset of what could be
Yes.
possible.
If I had had an expectation that these speed networking meetings were supposed to give me ROI,
Mm,
I would have given up on it. I would have been like, "You know what? There's no ROI. I'm wasting my time. I gotta put it somewhere else. I'm gonna start a newsletter blast," or
mm.
some crap like that.
Mhm,
But
mhm.
my expectancy was that it could lead to meeting great
A
people.
return on investment in relationships, and relationships are really where the actual return on the investment comes from.
Yeah, and maybe there's no return, but what nothing ventured, nothing gained kind of thing, that
Mhm,
I was spending this time and I would just follow up. And you know what she ultimately told me?
mhm.
She had written to me, and the email had gotten stuck in her draft box, but it doesn't even matter.
Mhm.
I followed up, and it led to so many things. Even if it had just led to a friendship.
There's the catching yourself on assumptions, like, you didn't assume she was ghosting you. You didn't assume that she didn't mean it when she said, "I've got somebody for you." You didn't assume, I mean, you had to play around with that. You guys, I wish you
Sure.
could see Shanna. She's like, "Well, I might have
Mm,
thought about
I
that
might have
every other
assumed she
day."
ghosted me. There is a ghosting epidemic.
There's too much, and sometimes people will get to you when they can.
I think that's absolutely right. I also think that the etiquette, the rules of engagement have fallen to by the wayside, and, we have too many technology touch points, so they're difficult to
Yeah.
manage.
Yeah. Well, what I hear in that is, and this is also, if people ask, we work with our clients a lot around really working on your ask so that it is a bite size ask. It's something that you can, that the person, because everybody does truly want to support, as you and I were talking about at the top of this, at South by, everybody has such a generative, generous way of being. One of my favorite books, if you haven't read this as part of your leadership journey and life journey, really, is The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. And one of the agreements is use your words articulately. And so if somebody, one, ask, make sure your ask is articulate, and really think about what can that person do for me in a finite amount of time to move me forward. And then as the recipient of that, say yes, no, or counter offer, or don't offer something that you're actually really not going to follow up on. If we can all use our words articulately, don't make assumptions, assume positive intent, right? And do the best we can, right? I think those are golden nuggets to live by.
I also think that we all have to get comfortable following up,
Mm, yes.
because sometimes people just need a reminder. I often get when I follow up, "Thank you so much for following up."
Yeah.
I don't know how this got lost in my inbox because inboxes are out of control.
Y-
And then I'm always really glad that I followed up, you
Yes.
know?
Yes. I love
So,
that. Good reminder.
yeah.
So I just want to touch one more time on your fractional work. What advantages do you see for you and others
Mhm.
that might be following suit in a portfolio career? What are some of the advantages of fractional work for you, just for you?
Just for me. So, I think for me, I really love variety. One of the things that I loved about working in an agency was working on different clients.
Hmm.
This gives me the opportunity to have my own little agency and to
Love
work
that.
with different sizes and stages
Hmm.
and types of
I love that.
brands.
So variety. What else?
I also think it's a very modern way to work, so it gives me the opportunity to embed, on a really deep level with a brand without embedding on a political level, which
Mm-hmm.
sometimes happens when
Mm-hmm.
you work in corporate. So I get to go deep with the founders or executives and really sort of shape the business and make impact without getting into the sort of drudgery that can sort of burn you out on a corporate level.
Okay. I love that.
If you had asked me 6 years ago when I sort of dedicated myself to the fractional life, I would have said that it gave me more flexibility. I don't know that that's true anymore. I think that COVID lockdown shifted the culture of work, and there are a lot of jobs that are now hybrid. So I don't know that fractionals have a monopoly on that kind of lifestyle anymore.
Yeah, that's really true. But I hear choice. You get to choose freedom.
I also think that the way we work as executives is a little different. I think fractional executives you can go in and sort of say, "Okay, I'm gonna audit your for me, I'm gonna audit your brand or your creative team or your agencies, and then I'm gonna come back to you with a plan. And we're gonna really dig in and we're gonna get this into shape." Whereas if I went in as their executive creative director or chief creative officer, my remit would be different and there would be no foreseeable end in sight.
Yes. So time frame orientation allows you to have greater impact in a shorter amount of time without a lot of bullshit is
I
what I'm
can be
also
I can
hearing.
be I can be very focused, right?
Yeah.
So, I've also structured projects where I do a brand book, and then I go away, and then I come back, and I help, an emerging or new brand, build their team and then launch.
So as a fractional, you could give them something, go away for a little bit more, a little bit of time, and then come back. So it is, you
And
they are on.
operationalize.
Yes, I love it. Okay, so we are going to just end because I want to land this on around relationships. One of the ideas you return to again and again is that success is ultimately about relationships. How did that realization come to you? When were you realizing, oh my gosh, like I have had some of the best people from way back or even just yesterday that can help shape my career.
One of the sort of most pivotal moments for me was when I was hired by Bed Bath& and Beyond to help build from scratch, from the ground up, their first internal creative agency and photo studio, multimedia studio.
Mhm.
We had to build an entire team. We had nobody and built it to over 40 people. And I had all sorts of great relationships, some from that agency I was just telling you about, where I
Mhm.
met Jeff, and from various stages of my career. And
Mhm.
I was a little hesitant because you hear in conventional wisdom that you shouldn't start businesses with friends and family.
Mhm.
And I took that to heart. I said, that can get complicated. I'm going to be the boss, and
Mhm.
these are my friends.
Mhm.
And I talked to a dear friend of mine, actually from McGill,
Mhm.
from university, who I knew had historically worked with his friends and
Mhm.
hired his friends.
Mhm.
And, I was talking about the job and building a team. And I asked him, I was like, what's your point of view on this? And he looked at me and he said, "Shena, why would you want to work with anyone other than your friends?"
This was the theme of South by, I think, as well, around relationships.
Mhm.
It's around and you already trust them.
Yes.
You if you truly do use your words articulately, you can design with them of what you need and what your expectations are from
Mhm.
them and what they might need from you. It's
Yes.
about wisdom. Like, we can be all mature here. Talk to me about those things.
It's about designing boundaries, process, and I think using the implicit trust to create an explicit workplace relationship. And I think that's one of the pivotal moments. I think another is just, the way that people from my first job through to Tiffany, through to some of the clients I've had as a fractional have
Mhm.
now become dear friends.
Yeah.
And, how those relationships went from professional relationships to personal relationships to where they are my chosen family.
And then back to professional,
And
right?
then back to professional. I mean, when I left Tiffany, I gave 3 weeks notice. The first week people were crying, "I can't believe you're gonna leave, and what are we gonna do without you?" And the second week, that light had dimmed a little bit, and then by the 3rd week, I was kinda being an asshole, and my boss pulled me aside, and he was like, "Shena, you think you're outta here and you're never gonna see these people again. The world is small. You want them all to feel the way they did the first moment that you told them you were leaving." And he was right, and I
Sage
shifted
advice.
my attitude really, really quickly,
Mhm.
and that was great advice. The other sort of sidebar advice I'd give people is don't give 3 weeks notice.
No,
2
that's
is
a really good one.
plenty. Yeah.
I had last night dinner with a dear friend that I used to work with at Adidas, and now she is helping me. We hadn't seen each other in 30 years. She might or might not be on our podcast, so I don't want to say her name yet. And then she, last night at dinner, was sitting there with Jim and I at and was giving me all sorts of leads for the Murmuration Collective. And, we just picked right back up our friend and professional cadence sat side by side, and it was so fun. The dinner was so enlightening and so energetic and so generative. It was awesome. Okay, so Shenna, before we leave, we always ask this quick speed round. Is there a should you were raised with that you now completely reject?
Yes. Um, I think the should I was raised with that I completely reject is that you should pick a career and stick with it for the rest of your life.
We know that's not going to happen in this day and
Nope.
age. So I love it. That's been like, no more of that. Is there a should you wish you had shed earlier in your life?
I wish I had realized earlier that I have the right to change my mind.
Can I get a whoop whoop on that? Whoop
Whoop,
whoop.
whoop.
Yes. What's the power in that?
The power in that is that I have nothing to prove.
Yeah. I changed my mind.
I
It's
changed my
okay.
mind. I don't know if maybe that wasn't the right decision. It's okay.
Or maybe I changed
Yeah.
my value set, or life has happened, or there was 9/11, or there was a global pandemic.
Or you know what? Mama needs, health insurance and sick days, you
Yes.
know?
Yeah, I
There are
love
lots
that.
of things. There are
Yes.
lots of things.
That inform our decisions. Thank you.
Mhm.
All right. What is one should you are currently letting go of? And what do you believe it will open up for you? And we will help hold you accountable if you'd like.
Oh,
Sorry, not
that's a
sorry.
that is yeah, you're sorry, not sorry. That's a good one. I think I've shed a lot of my shoulds.
You have shed a lot of shoulds.
Here's one.
Tell me.
I should not take a vacation until X.
Oh, I love that. So no more binary rules of engagement for what has to
Yes.
happen.
I can't do X. I should not do X until Y. I have a lot of those
Mm.
that are very subtle.
What is that gonna give you if you no longer do that?
Lower blood pressure.
Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
actually
for the
really
love of
important.
God, I think better health, wellness, peace of mind.
Yeah,
I think there are a lot of rules and restrictions and parameters that I set for myself subconsciously that I don't even realize.
yeah.
I can't do this until I do that. You
Mhm,
know?
mhm,
Even little things, like, I can't watch this show until I go to the gym.
mhm.
Bullshit, watch the show.
Oh my
chill
God.
yourself out, you know?
Christina Glickman in our very first episode of Beyond Should is like, don't say you're going to work out every day this week. If you work out today and you don't work out tomorrow, who gives a shit?
Who gives a shit?
Don't put these rules on ourselves, because you know what? The amount of cortisol that we place on ourselves inadvertently, this is part of our wellness. How do we shed the cortisol? And this, I think you're awakening us to these, like, these little rules of engagement where we shame ourselves, or stressors that we can get rid of.
It's the mindset that a lot of women have, by the way, like, "If I do this, I can have that french fry or that piece of chocolate." It's a reward system
Mm,
that is completely self-constructed, and it's not okay. I
and
also
shame
think as
inducing.
the estrogen depletes, our heart becomes more of a concern. I have a better should
Go for it.
that from childhood that I've shed that
Tell
I
us.
think is really important for me. I was raised, and I don't think I'm alone, to believe that one should not leave a job, resign, quit, or leave a job unless one has another job lined up. And that is a very important should that I shed. And I did it for the first time just about a year after my father died. And it was one of the best professional decisions I ever made. And it was
Mm,
really hard for me to shed that should,
mm.
but I always believed that it was really important to have something else lined up.
And so what did that give you when you were able to do that?
Um, Empowerment.
And trust in self, there's that expectancy.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah.
And, that was a huge step that I took. It was a very, very pivotal step,
Mm.
and I had never done it before.
Mm. You created
But
space for something, you lifted your head so you
yeah.
could see different opportunities that might
Mhm.
float by that you might not have seen if you were deep into the weeds of that
It
toxic
yes.
place.
Well, it was the first time I went fractional.
Okay, Shena Patel, I have to let you go. You and I could talk all day long. Thank you so much for being one of our first season guests of Beyond Should. You wrote this in your letter to yourself, but I'm going to count myself as an old new friend. And I hope that you will let me be in your life and you'll be in mine as an old new friend. So I'm,
You are absolutely that, and I
mm,
look forward to many, many more long, amazing conversations. Thank you so much for having me.
thank you guys. You guys check out all the amazing things that Shenna has shared with us today. Shenna, thank you so much. Be well. And I will see you hopefully in New York. I'm going to come to the next New York board meeting. So
Oh,
hopefully I
great.
can
See you
see you.
soon then.
All right. Lots of love. Be well.
Same to
And
you.
I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Shanna, I loved how you so vulnerably shared with us this beautiful dichotomy of what our career paths can look like. So, you had some parts of your career where you had your name in lights and you were the hottest ticket, to where actually then you had to take a short, practical, ephemeral choice in your career path just to keep the lights on. Yes, sometimes we have to make practical decisions. The world will throw us a curveball and we have to meet those moments. And sometimes they're just that simple. They're practical, they're ephemeral, and then keep going to find those values based, career aligned moments that are going to boomerang us back into all the things that we are striving for. So, thank you for holding that invitation for us to be able to do both. It was a beautiful session. I hope you all got as much out of it as I did. I'll see you on the other side of Should. Have a great day, everybody. Bye. Beyond Should is creatively supported by a team of dynamic women. Thank you to our executive producer, Lauren Lagrasso, our producer, Daniela Silva, our marketing manager, Esty McInnes, our engineer, Ali Dietz at YA Studio, and our TMC curriculum design director, Katie Craig. Without these women, we would not be able to bring you this dynamic content. Thank you. Thank you for listening to another episode of Beyond Should, just one of the many ways we are working to support women from all walks of life. And we know personally, and from what our clients are sharing with us on the daily, that this is a dynamic and challenging time we are living through. And if you are feeling frustrated or out of control with your current work situation or life in general, and feel like something is just waiting for you, just beyond your reach or clarity, but you can't put your finger on what it is, then perhaps you might consider taking on a coaching engagement with us at the Murmuration Collective. We are professionally trained and certified leadership, career, and life coaches. We support women like you to wade through the confusion and find what they are truly seeking in the next chapters of their personal and professional lives. Our contact details are in the show notes. We look forward to meeting you, hearing your story, and seeing how we might be able to support you further. Be well.